Right now, in 2026, LEGO just posted record profits, growing faster than the entire toy industry, while its biggest rivals, Mattel and Hasbro, both saw sales decline. It's the biggest toy company on Earth. 22 years ago, it was $800 million in debt, losing close to $1 million a day, and weeks from bankruptcy. This isn't a simple comeback story. LEGO didn't survive by doing less. It survived by learning exactly one rule. And that rule is the only reason today's LEGO can do more than it ever has without nearly dying again. The burning platform. By 2003, LEGO had quietly turned itself into something almost unrecognizable. Alongside the bricks, it now ran theme parks across Europe, sold LEGO-branded clothing, published its own media, and built video games in-house. Nobody at the company had said no to a new idea in years. Every division kept adding, kept launching, kept expanding into whatever seemed exciting, and leadership treated that constant activity as proof the company was innovating. The cost of that was staggering. LEGO's catalog had ballooned to more than 14,000 different parts and elements, each one adding its own manufacturing complexity and cost. Some of its high-tech motorized sets were being sold for less than they cost to manufacture. LEGO was losing money on its own products at scale, without anyone fully realizing it until an internal review caught it. Sales fell 30% in 2 years. By 2004, the company was hemorrhaging roughly $1 million a day, and private equity firms had started circling the family-owned business, sensing a bankruptcy buyout in the making. A young strategist inside the company, Jürgen Vig Knudstorp, put it to the executive team bluntly. They were on a burning platform, running out of cash, and they might not survive. What if the problem is LEGO itself? In 2004, at just 35 years old, Knudstorp became LEGO's CEO, the first person to run the company who wasn't a member of the founding family, in a business that had been passed down for 3 generations. He came in with a former McKinsey consultant's instinct for uncomfortable questions, and he asked the one nobody wanted to hear. What if the problem wasn't that LEGO hadn't innovated enough? What if the problem was LEGO itself? A company that had confused constant expansion with progress, celebrating every new launch while the thing that actually made money quietly got worse? His answer wasn't complicated. LEGO had one thing nobody else in the world could copy: the brick, and the specific kind of creativity that only the brick made possible. Every competitor could make a theme park. Every competitor could license a movie. Nobody else could make a brick that clicked into every other brick LEGO had ever made, going back decades. Everything the company had added on top of that, the parks, the clothes, the games, was optional. The brick wasn't. Back to the brick, Knudstorp's turnaround was blunt. He cut LEGO's part catalog nearly in half, down to around 7,000 pieces. He sold all 4 Legoland theme parks to Merlin Entertainment for roughly $460 million, taking LEGO out of the park ownership business entirely. He shut down the in-house video game studio, moving to licensing deals instead. He cut roughly 1,000 jobs and closed unprofitable ventures across the company, and refocused everything that remained on the one product LEGO understood better than anyone on Earth. It worked, and it worked fast. Within a few years, LEGO was profitable again. By 2015, it had passed Mattel to become the most profitable toy company in the world, and it hasn't looked back since. Here's where most versions of this story end. LEGO almost died from doing too much, so it went back to doing one thing, and that saved it. Simple, satisfying, and, looking at LEGO today, not actually the whole truth. More than ever, look at what LEGO is doing right now in 2026. It's building sets around Formula 1, The Lord of the Rings, Zelda, Minecraft, and Fortnite. It's rolling out a new sensor-equipped smart brick for tech-enabled sets. And in a detail that would sound like a plot twist if you wrote it as fiction, LEGO recently paid roughly $260 million to buy back nearly 30 Discovery Centers and Legoland parks. For Merlin Entertainment, the exact company it sold its theme parks to 20 years earlier, in the deal that saved it. The company that nearly died from doing too much is now doing more than it ever has. If doing less were really the lesson, none of this should be happening. So what's actually going on? The real rule Knutstorp installed wasn't do less. It was narrower and far more durable than that. Nothing gets built unless it's still built from the brick. Fortnite, F1, movies, theme parks. Every single expansion since 2004 has had to pass through that one constraint. Lego isn't smaller than it was in 2003. It's doing more than ever, deliberately, because everything it does still has to be, unmistakably, Lego. Was it just focus? Here's a fair objection. Maybe Lego didn't survive because of some elegant rule about staying on brand. Maybe it survived because the Lego movie was a genuine cultural hit in 2014 and a few blockbuster licensing deals, Star Wars, Marvel, Harry Potter, happened to land at the right time. There's something to that. No rule guarantees a hit movie, and Lego caught real cultural momentum it couldn't have fully engineered. But a rule is exactly what decided which opportunities Lego was even willing to consider in the first place. Dozens of toy and entertainment companies have chased movie tie-ins and franchise licensing without it saving them, sometimes making things worse by stretching a brand across products that had nothing to do with what made it special. What made Lego's version different is that every one of those bets still had to work as buildable bricks, not just a logo slapped onto plastic. The movie didn't save Lego by accident. It succeeded because it was built on a foundation the company had already spent a decade protecting. The lesson. The comfortable version of this story is focus is good, do less. That's true as far as it goes, but it's not actually what saved Lego, and it's not really useful advice on its own. Plenty of narrowly focused companies still fail, and plenty of sprawling companies survive just fine. The sharper lesson is this. The danger was never diversification itself. It was diversification with no constraint attached to it. No test every new idea had to pass. No version of no the company was willing to say. Lego's turnaround wasn't about becoming smaller forever. It was about installing one rule it would never break again. And then, once that rule existed, growing as far and as fast as it wanted. With Formula One cars, video games, theme parks, and a piece of tech-enabled plastic that reacts when you touch it. All of it still recognizably, unmistakably, built from the same brick that almost killed the company in the first place. If you're building something and wondering whether to say yes to the next opportunity, Lego's story suggests the better question isn't, does this take us further from our core? It's, does this still pass through it? Next time, a company that didn't die slowly, and didn't die from a single bad deal. It died in a single afternoon, when its own leadership decided the fastest way to protect profits was to fire the very people who understood the business best. Subscribe if you want to see the pattern before it repeats.